5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And with that, welcome to your Media Mosh podcast. I am your host, Shane Beauregard, coming at you with all your news, reviews, and previews on what to watch for now, your streaming services, and your television. I hope everyone is being safe out there amongst this craziness and chaos. We are only in essentially, well, a little over 2 weeks, but it's officially now, it's going to be like somewhere towards the end of April when we're all out of quarantine. And it already feels like a month. It already feels like a month. This thing is bananas. I do not watch the news at all day. So literally I'll give myself a recap at night about numbers, but I don't want to see memes. I don't want to hear depressing fucking articles about scientists and what they're going to predict. It's all whatever it is. I'm not going to get sucked into watching that. I'm just trying to get through my day to day. And I've learned a couple things. I am a really terrible, impatient teacher. I should just go to Staples and buy 10 dry erase boards. One for everyone I'm going to break over my kids' heads. Not my daughter, but my son. Because he has literally 20 minutes worth of work. And he won't do it. Anyway, my watching has been sporadic because when they're off, we've been watching Teen Titans Go and all kinds of cartoons and crazy stuff. I try to introduce some culture to them. Since once in a while they will watch a live action movie. So I figure, hey, let's go to Disney Plus. We'll watch Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I used to love that movie when I was, 12, 11, whenever it came out. And they can care less. I thought it still, for the most part, yeah, the CGI and graphic, whatever they used for the special effects. It was 1989, people. I still found it a pretty entertaining movie. But yet, I couldn't get my kids into it. They just watch terrible show after terrible. Well, Teen Titans Go is a good show. But outside of that, they've been watching terrible shows. I'll tell you what, I will not get sucked in. And I don't care how many people watch this and how many people post about this. I am not watching The Tiger King. I fucking refuse to watch The Tiger King. And I know, because I've heard from 100 people, and 100 people verify they get sucked right in. But if you know me, folks, what is the one thing I don't like? But if you know me and you've been listening to my podcast, I can't stand a redneck. I'm not going to watch a show about a bunch of rednecks and their home tigers and whatever they're getting themselves and whatever else they're getting themselves into. I can't do it and I won't do it. And I realize it's a Netflix series or a show, whatever the hell it is, and I should review it because I do review a lot of Netflix stuff, but I can't do it. I refuse. So moving on from that, the other reason why I haven't been on social media or the news, I am tired. If there's one group of people I don't want to hear from, it's fucking celebrities during this thing. On how they're quarantined with their fucking kids or whatever it is in their multi-million-dollar homes. Go fuck yourselves. In the whole Gal Gadot and Imagine song, Jesus Christ. Why? Why? You can relate to us? Is that why you're singing it? I don't. It's terrible. Terrible. Shame on you for every celebrity who participated. Yes, you are hot. But that doesn't cross out the fact that was a terrible video and you did it and it just came off so superficial. Like you're relatable or something. Yeah, you know what? I can't, folks. This quarantine might make me go crazy. But let's just get on to it. As we are turning the calendars into April, I'm going to give you a short rundown of what's coming out the first week of April on Netflix first. And of course, as always, I will give you updates as the month goes along. But here are some notable movies and shows coming out April 1st on Netflix. You have Community seasons 1 through 6. And that is one of the shows, admittingly, that kind of got swept under the rug. I never watched it. I don't like Chevy Chase. The Jennifer Love Hewitt, Can't Hardly Wait. The Ryan Reynolds, Just Friends. The classic Bloodsport. The even classicer, I don't even know if that's a word. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. You have all the Lethal Weapons and Road to Perdition. Coming out April 5th, you have the Colin Farrell, Nicole Kidman movie Killing of the Sacred Deer. I reviewed this last year. Not my movie, not at all. I did appreciate The Lobster because it's directed by the same director. That one is not for me, so... But you may like it. Coming out on Disney Plus, there's not a whole lot. You have Onward coming out April 3rd, and you have Dr. Dolittle, the Robert Downey Jr. version coming out April 1st. On Amazon Prime coming out on the 1st, you have all the James Bonds, like the Roger Moore, the Sean Connerys, the Pierce Brosnan. You also have Hotel Artemis, which was one of my sleeper movies from last summer. You have Rambo: Last Blood. Later in the month, you have Bosch series. You have Bosch season 6, which is an excellent show. You have the Robert Pattinson, William Dafoe movie, The Lighthouse. And again, with all the streaming services, I will keep you updated. So your top 10 for Netflix, as I'm coming at you right now, you have number 10, the show Love is Blind. Number 9, the Octavia Spencer Self-Made. Number 8, you have Car Masters, which is a show. Number 7, you have Badland, which is a Netflix original Western movie. Number 6, you have Uncorked. Number 5, you have the Netflix original The Platform, which I'm halfway through that on several recommendations. So far, it's okay. It's okay. I'll have my full review next week. Number 4, you have the Mel Gibson movie Bloodfather, which came out in 2016. Number 2, you have Ozark Season 3, which I just wrapped up today. And this is probably going to be number 1 for a long time. Tiger King. So let's just move on because I don't want to waste another breath on that show. So amongst the last 2.5 weeks, besides Ozark, I have been rewatching several shows I haven't seen in a couple years. I went back and rewatched Daredevil season 2 and 3. And if there's nothing that I can really say about this series, I firmly believe it is the best series on Netflix, period. Just a quick recap of season 2 after a second rewatch. I enjoyed the first half. Anything with John Bernthal and the Punisher really worked. And you kind of, not that you forget, but I forgot how good Vincent D'Onofrio was as the Kingpin. Where season 2 fell apart for me was the whole Elektra storyline. I kind of fast forwarded all those parts. Then I rewatched season 3, and if I have to put in order, it's season 1, 3, and 2 for me. I really loved Bullseye character arc, Kingpin again, and then Charlie Cox is the perfect guy to play Daredevil. So I'm not going to waste time reviewing those shows because I just reviewed them before on this show, and I just want to give you a quick thought on the second time through with those shows. So I guess that's what I'll do for next month. If I haven't seen a show in a couple years, I think I'm going to go back and rewatch it. So my wife currently, because she's been watching Hulu, I have not been. So she finished all 3 seasons of The Handmaid's Tale, and now she's on Little Fires Everywhere with Reese Witherspoon and Joshua Jackson. Yeah, from Dawson's Creek is on this show. And I haven't been watching it, so I'll let her fill me in because it just did not interest me at all. That, and I've been playing the hell out of some Spider-Man PS4. I haven't bought the expansion packs, and I've been just playing that for like a month, it seems like. So, but enough of my boring stuff. Let's get on to what I watched. And this is a movie I actually saw in the movie theater before we weren't allowed to go to movie theaters anymore. I watched this one right after I watched Bloodshot with Vin Diesel. This would be The Hunt, sitting at 54% critic score, the 66% audience score. This one stars Betty Gilpin, Hilary Swank, Dennis Reynolds, Ethan Suplee, a very slimmed down Ethan Suplee. And I'm not going to go into very much details about this movie because you can video it on demand right now. And I really enjoyed this movie. It's very thin on plot. You don't get a lot of character development. But going into this movie, you have to know it is a political satire to the fullest. Even down to the names of the characters, or I should say the code names to the characters. It's a goof, really. You have these rich Democratic liberals who end up kidnapping 13 people and throwing them into a field and basically hunting them down. And each individual is picked for a specific reason, except for Betty Gilpin's character. And all we know about her is she had some kind of military background. They don't go very much into the backgrounds of these characters, which was fine by me because this movie hits the ground running, and it kind of threw me for a loop because there's a lot of characters that, this is put it this way, they don't make it out of the first 5 minutes of the movie. Because when you think a character pops up, like Emma Roberts, you think, okay, she's going to be here for a while. Spoiler. And as the movie progresses, the group gets eventually whittled down to Betty Gilpin. And you find out this is really her movie. She carries this movie forward. I love Betty Gilpin. She's in Glow from Netflix. I kind of have a thing for her now. She is squarely shooting into my top 5, even higher. There's something just, I mean, she's a full figure lady, but there's something about her that just, So anyway, the only thing I really didn't understand is Hilary Swank's character. She's in the credits, and they do, for some reason, they hide her for about 2/3 of the movie. Like, they show the background of her head, you see her, you hear her voice, and you know it's her. But for some reason, they want to make this big twist that it's Hilary Swank. And their backstories, the liberal backstories, are even kind of confusing because she gets fired from her position at this big company, but she says it's a joke, and they hunt down these rednecks and conservatives who are like bloggers, protesters, anyone who says something about Hilary Swank's character in their group. That's who they kidnap. But there's no, it just doesn't make sense when you think about it, because I don't know. I'm not going to get into it because it is kind of confusing for a very simplistic type of movie, because we've seen movies like this before. But this works because of Swank and more or less Betty Gilpin's character. Doesn't have a lot of dialogue, but man, I'll tell you, when it finally gets to the end, that was a good last act. That's all I'm going to say. One of the better female-on-female fights you'll see on screen. I just sat back and enjoyed myself. Don't over movie think this movie, people, is all I'm going to tell you. Did that come out right? Anyway, just take it for what it is in face value, and know going in that it is a political satire. So I disagree with the critics and the audience. I go 4.0 out of 5 for me on The Hunt. I hope this at least, it's kind of tough now because no movies are making money. It made a little money before we closed everything down, but I really hope to see more of Betty Gilpin for more than the obvious reason. I really like her. So, all right, moving on to a movie that I rewatched, and I haven't seen it since 2012. It's on Netflix. I'm not going to give you a full review, but I am going to kind of recap this movie. It is the movie Haywire, directed by Steven Soderbergh. This was Gina Carano's first appearance in a film, coming off her MMA career. You would know her from playing Angel in Deadpool 1. Outside of her, you have Ewan McGregor, Channing Tatum, Michael Douglas, Michael Fassbender, Antonio Banderas, and the late, great Bill Paxton. So it's a great cast, but the story, we've seen it 1,000 times. It's kind of Jason Bourne-ish. You have a spy who's been burned, and she's tracking her. She's basically killing her way to the top to find out who set her up and why. That's basically the plot of the story. But it's I would say, not an unusual, but it's a different type of action movie because of the fight scenes. There's no score in this movie, really, especially during the fight scenes. So it's kind of off-putting because you think someone turned down the volume, but you're actually hearing the punches and the kicking and the breathing and all that stuff. So it's a little different. And Gina Carano, being fresh off her MMA career, really good fight scenes in this. But I found it unusual, and most of you who've seen this movie know this fact, that they used a different actress to voice her character. So I don't know, trying to cover up her acting ability maybe. But again, the plot and story, we've seen it before, but the cast and the action is enough to keep you in there, especially the scenes with Gina Carano and Michael Fassbender. Fantastic. So give this a watch. This is on Netflix right now, especially if you're a fan of Steven Soderbergh. The critics have this one at 80%. The audience has it at 41%, and I could kind of see that way because there are some slow-moving parts to this movie. And again, it's a movie we've seen 1,000 times, so maybe they wanted action throughout the whole thing. I don't know. I agree with the critics. I give this one a 3.5 out of 5 for Haywire on Netflix right now. So, as I mentioned before, I got done with Ozark Season 3, which is one of my favorite Netflix shows. I love Jason Bateman. I love Laura Linney. I love the cast. So right now, this is sitting at 95% on Rotten Tomato with a 93% audience score. Off the bat, I'm going to say this is the best season of Ozark that we've had. It goes Season 1, 3, and 2. I know a lot of people were kind of turned down on Season 2. I still enjoyed it. But here, the tension, if you can believe it or not, gets ratcheted up a couple notches. I love Julia Garner, who plays Ruth. She's my favorite character in the show. You get introduced to a new character that kind of throws the plot every which way but loose, and that is Tom Pelphrey. He plays Ben. He plays Laura Linney's brother who comes into town, And he's been on shows like Banshee. I think he's in the last 2 seasons of Banshee. But he was also in the first 2 seasons of Iron Fist. So if you recognize him, that's where you'd recognize him from. So this is 6 months after the Birds have their casino operation full on. He's still doing business with the KC mob. He's still laundering money from the Navarro cartel. But now he has extra FBI pressure on him. And as this season was going along, I kept thinking, man, he just keeps putting out fires. So how can you have a show that's constantly putting out fires? But I would have to believe if you actually lived this kind of life, that's what you'd be doing. Like, you wouldn't have time to sleep, eat, fuck, nothing. So what I liked about this season is you had a real divide between the Birds. You had Marty doing his thing with the casino and the KC mob, and he had his own ideas on how to handle Navarro. Where Laura Linney kind of, I don't want to say she got power hungry, but she definitely tried to play her hand more in the show. They were doing things outside of each other's knowledge, kind of undercutting each one as they went along until it came to a head. But I'll say the star of the show was really Laura Linney's character. Jason Bateman was the same wry, calm character he's always played, but Laura Linney really brought the emotion to this season, especially when it pertained to her brother Ben. The only negative I actually would say about this show, and this really doesn't matter because the main storylines are Marty and Wendy Bird. Oh, I also like to give a shout out to Jana McTeer, who plays the lawyer Ellen Pierce. He plays the Navarro's lawyer, so she's actually devising her own plan against the Birds, and it just gets crazy. You'd recognize her. She played Jessica Jones's mother in that god-awful season 2, but she really did a great job in this season if you were just grading her acting scale on Jessica Jones season 2, because it was terrible. But she does a really good job here. So there's a lot in motion in this season. The season is more emotional. You get some more background to Marty. But getting back to the only negative was Marty and Wendy's kids, Charlotte and Jonah. They don't have a lot to do. In fact, we don't need Charlotte in the show at all. And even Jonah this season, you don't need him at all. But I understand they're there, but just don't expect anything from their 2 characters. They don't develop at all. There's no storylines for them at all like there was in seasons 1 and 2. So there's nothing really going on there. But so I agree with the critics and the audience on this one. I give Ozark season 3 a 4.75 out of 5. There were a couple episodes that were, I don't want to say unnecessary, but they were definitely slower paced, not throwaways, but we could have done without them. But the way season 3 ended, in my mind, they have one more season to wrap this up, because I don't know how they can carry the show past the 4th season after what transpired in the 3rd season. So I feel like everything's actually coming to a head here. So you should be able to finish this series in the 13 episodes you're provided, is all I'll say. But if you're looking for something to binge, or if you haven't binged it yet, that's my binge of the week, Ozark season 3. If you have not watched this show yet, get on it, people. If you liked Breaking Bad, if you like Better Call Saul, this is right up your alley. It's in that same vein of show. And again, you get standout performances by Jason Bateman, Julia Garner, who plays Ruth, and Laura Linney. So go watch it. And that's all I really have, folks. So all I can say is stay safe again. Use some common sense. Listen to what they're telling us. Stay quarantined. Play your video games. Keep your kids alive. Don't go to jail, and don't become an alcoholic. So until then, I will unpack some more movies I've watched. And I hope I will try to have a special guest, Mr. Argue Myself on. I'm going to, since we have a lot of time here, folks, I'm going to try to use a new feature on the old Podbean app where it lets me have someone call into the show. So it's either going to go sideways or it's going to be awesome. Either way, I'm going to have Mr. Earn Myself on next week. Stay tuned for that. Until then, go check me on the Facebooks, Media Mosh. Go check me on the Twitterverse, @ShaneMediaMosh. More importantly, people, go to the Apple Podcast Store, download me, share me. Take a second and hit that review button for me. And then circle back and check out Mr. Argue Myself on all 3 platforms, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebooks. 3 different platforms for 3 different types of content. Until then, get caught up. Get caught up in the mosh.